Hi, I'm Dr. BJ Hardick with Maximize Living. I'm here with my friend Becca. We're talking this month about how to have a healthy brain and the importance of keeping a fit brain and how that relates to your entire health. You know, as much as we talk about diet, exercise, detox, lifestyle practices, many people don't realize just how much of an impact trauma has on the health of their brain and therefore the health of the entire nervous system and therefore the health of the entire body. You know, Becca and I were going to talk about your experience having had a concussion that was very, very bad. Most people don't realize that when you deal with brain trauma earlier in your lifetime, that can lead to all types of brain problems later in your life. So although we often come in once there's already a problem with dementia or cognitive decline or forgetfulness, we really should have come in when there were these initial traumas earlier on in life, and that's what we're going to talk about. You know, most people don't realize that Sidney Crosby, who had a concussion a few years ago now and received a lot of notoriety in the press for overcoming his concussion, going on and winning gold medals, most people don't realize that most of his care was at Life University, which is the chiropractic school that I attended, and he received advanced chiropractic care, the model for which the Maximize Living corrective adjustments are designed upon. You know, so it has to be recognized that when somebody has a concussion, yes, there is this major rattling and trauma to the brain, but when you go through that much trauma to your brain, you obviously go through that much trauma to the neck. And what I have always seen is that we often focus a lot on the trauma to the brain, and people forget that people like Sidney Crosby and so many other people like Becca have addressed the other problems in the neck and actually seen so many of their problems go away. So why don't you just share with our audience here, you know, first of all, you know, how the concussion happened, what types of symptoms you had in the first place. How was that when you first had the injury?
Sure. So about 2.5 years ago, I had a pretty significant trauma. I fell about 5 feet onto the concrete and I hit the back of my neck and head here.
Yeah.
I immediately went to the doctor to seek some help. Unfortunately, I just kind of got the same old, you know, lay in a dark room, don't use screens, it will pass.
Right.
I was hopeful with that. I did what they prescribed, and unfortunately, about 2 to 4 weeks later, I still wasn't seeing any improvements. I had severe pain in the back of my neck and at the low end of my head there. I had significant blurry vision. I was unable to lock in and focus on objects. I was unable to read, just purely because I couldn't get the focus of what was in front of me.
Yeah.
I had severe nausea, you know, loss of appetite, which is pretty normal with that. Ringing in the ears, sensitivity to light, to noise, and basically it just took over my whole being.
Yeah.
It felt as though part of me was gone and this new concussion person was there.
Yeah.
And it was very scary because you see the world through your eyes and you see through your senses, and it was like part of that was taken away from me.
Well, and oftentimes when people do go through this type of injury, they're told that they're going to have to just live with it until it just goes away. You know, were you given any type of timeline as to when your body should get better, or just laying in a dark room and letting it pass?
Right. It was very vague. It was about, well, for some people it can last a few weeks, for some people a few months. So I was hoping that I would be one of the few that it only lasts a few weeks. However, you know, 2 months went by, 3 months went by, and I was like, there has to be something else I can do. There has to be some way I can help rehabilitate myself, because I wasn't satisfied with where I was and I wanted to get back to how I was and live my full life.
Yeah.
So I had, that being said, I had the very severe pain in the back of my neck, and this would cause really bad headaches every day. I'd wake up with headaches, I'd go to bed with headaches. I always had a dull ache right here.
Yeah.
So bad that it would come up into the back of my head and into the left eye. And for that reason, I thought something must be wrong with the neck. So I went in to see Dr. Hardick, and we did some x-rays, and sure enough, there were some misalignments in the neck there that was also causing some vision issues as well. So after a few adjustments, it was like a night and day. The pain immediately started to subside. After doing my care plan for about maybe 2 months, I noticed that I wasn't waking up with headaches anymore. I didn't have this pain that was distracting, and I finally started to feel like at least that part of me was starting to heal. And without having the chiropractic care, it wouldn't have healed as it did. It wouldn't have healed as fast as it did. And it really helped with the pain.
And what about the blurry vision and the nausea? Because all these other
Yeah.
symptoms that are associated with post-concussion syndrome.
Yeah, so with the blurry vision, I noticed that the adjustments did help. It almost was if after I went for my adjustment, it almost like cleared my vision and cleared my brain. It was kind of weird, but it was like, I loved it.
Yeah.
I needed that. So it really helped improve my vision. It helped with the nausea because I didn't have the blurry vision, which led to nausea, and so did the pain. After seeing Dr. Hardick for a year now, I feel like those symptoms have significantly subsided. I don't have any problems with light sensitivity or noise. The pain is completely gone. I never get headaches anymore. The nausea is completely gone. Yeah. And the vision we're still working through, but it has been such a significant change because at one point I thought, is this going to be my new normal?
Yeah.
So thankfully we've...
And I don't think there's anything wrong with acknowledging that you're still healing even a year later, because oftentimes I'll work with people who dealt with a concussion 20, 30 years ago, and they still have all the same problems, but they're worse 30 years later.
Yes.
You know, so again, I think the big connection here, just for our audience, is that, you know, obviously when there's this trauma to the head, neck, obviously there's a trauma to the brain, but when you think about the way the meninges of the spinal cord, the way they actually attach to the upper cervical vertebrae as well, man, if there's twisting and torquing of the neck, you're forever gonna have these neurological consequences.
Yep.
So that's where obviously chiropractic plays such a role. But before we go, why don't you just give a little bit of a gleaming of hope as to also how you apply the other 5 essentials, looking at mindset, nutrition, detoxification, fitness, and how that's helped to contribute to your big transformation as well.
Definitely. So what I've really learned in myself is that concussion and brain injuries are a very holistic view and approach for healing. Chiropractic being the main, as it controls the spine and all the nerves. But you do need to focus on your nutrition. I found that eating brain healthy foods really helped me in that sense. Fitness levels, watching what I could do. Of course, I can't push it to the extreme, but monitoring what I could do really helped get the energy levels back up from my fatigue that was from the concussion. Getting the right mindset really helped. I read some books on concussion just so I could learn more about it and didn't feel like I was so alone.
Yes.
I practiced meditation 3 times a day to help get my central nervous system back aligned and in balance because it was out of whack.
Yeah.
And that helped me kind of be more at peace and feel more centered.
Yeah. Did you practically start an actual detox regimen with us? I don't totally recall.
I didn't.
No, okay.
No.
Well, there's one more piece still to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yes.
And that's where I find with the 5 essentials that you can always go deeper.
Yes.
You know, I mean, the baseline is obviously to maintain healthy mindset, healthy nervous system, healthy quality nutrition, optimum levels of fitness, and a perpetual detoxification. But you know what, within each of those levels, you can just keep getting better and better and better. And I think that's what you've demonstrated is so obvious. Thank you for sharing your story.
No, thank you.
I think the big gleaming of hope here for anybody watching this is that when you meet people who've had these traumatic injuries and they're told that they have to live with these things long term, there's often hope, you know, and hope in my experience starts with maximized living. So if you have friends that need to hear this story, make sure that they can get an assessment or a consultation, and never stop exploring, because we certainly never want to underestimate the power of the body to heal itself and never underestimate the power of maximized living.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Dr. BJ Hardick. I'm one of the co-authors of Maximize Living Nutrition Plans, which you've likely seen around the office. And one of the things we talk about in there is how important it is to get more fat in everyone's diet, specifically healthy quality fats that haven't been denatured by processing. We're also talking this month about how to have a healthy brain. Oftentimes we talk about fish being superfood for the brain. Well, one of the reasons why it's a superfood for the brain is because it provides those healthy fats. So I want to talk about more ways that we can get fats into the diet because they do benefit brain health. There's a lot that you hear about nowadays with intermittent fasting and people going on our advanced nutrition plan, which others might call more of a ketogenic plan or a healing diet. Any of these plans where we're looking at eliminating sugar, eliminating grains, getting more healthy fats in the diet, they will benefit brain function deep down at the cellular level without getting into too much of the chemistry. You just have to understand that your brain thrives better on fat than it does on sugar. So we want to look at ways that we can get more fats in the diet. And there's a bunch of ways, and I just brought a few creative ways actually from my own pantry just to show you what some of the options are. The first thing is obviously avocado. If you're ever in a restaurant and you need to add some healthy fats to a salad, see if they have an avocado. One of the other things you can do with an avocado is literally just eat it in place of chips. So oftentimes in place of chips and salsa, we'll do avocado and salsa. You can make great guacamoles. A simple guacamole would literally be just avocado, half a can of salsa, mix it up, throw in some cilantro, salt, pepper, and you've got some great healthy fat right there. I also wanted to talk about olives as well. Really, a lot of times we're trying to get in more omega-3s. The reality is olives, olive oils, most of those oils, they're actually providing way more omega-6s than omega-3s. And really, once we start to extract the oils out of these things and we're just having the oil on its own, we do have to be careful that those oils don't go rancid. Now, depending on who you speak to, some people may say that the oils go a heck of a lot rancid, so they go rancid a heck of a lot sooner than we would prefer. So I'm a fan of consuming the whole food. Ideally for a salad dressing, I would actually churn up pitted olives, and I would churn up something like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. You're getting a much thicker dressing in there, and you're going to be getting the whole food. Less of a chance of rancidity, obviously, for the oil. So again, you want to be getting great olives. Like here's some, they're organic. These are black ones. But again, there's such a variety of olives that you can get. There's some incredible olive bars where they really specialize in all the different oils, all the different types of olives. But again, great way is to get them in as a whole food. Again, if you're in a restaurant, you want to get some healthy fats added to your salad, just see if they have some olives. Most times they absolutely would. I did want to talk about coconut and coconut products. There's a bit of a joke in the natural health world that everybody just loves coconut oil and that use coconut oil on everything. Use it in your hair, use it on your skin, use it in your smoothies. And some of us may be guilty of that, including yours truly. But what I will say is that coconut oil, again, just like olive oil, that is the extracted oil out of the coconut. And really, the more whole food would be the coconut in the first place. I prefer, whenever I can get it, coconut butter. And this stuff tastes, I would say, like fudge. It's raw coconut butter, which is essentially a dehydrated form of the extracted meat, which includes the coconut oil in it. And in fact, even when you look at it, the top of it actually, the coconut oil has risen to the top, but once you get through the coconut oil at the top, you get down to that thicker coconut meat, which has created this butter through the dehydration process. It's absolutely delicious. And when you start looking at making a smoothie, certainly adding something like a coconut butter, it's raw, it hasn't been dehydrated, it's fantastic. And you can also be very creative with coconut butter, adding it not only to smoothies and smoothie bowls, but adding it to desserts as well. Coconut oil is exceptional, and certainly I can't tell you how many people have found that their brain works better when they start getting in more coconut oil and coconut products. But do think about some of the other options with coconut, even including the full coconut meat, the coconut butters as well. Not everything has to be coconut oil. And it has been in the news in the last few months about this controversy over coconut oil, providing too much saturated fat, therefore elevating cholesterol, therefore creating heart disease problems. You know what? You would have to subscribe to the theory that elevated cholesterol always causes more heart disease. And the truth is that's a myth from about 50 or 60 years ago. So we know, frankly, that more saturated fat, more healthy saturated fat in the diet is not always going to be associated with a greater risk of heart disease. It's more when that elevated cholesterol becomes oxidized from having too much sugar, having too much pollution in your body through forms of different toxicity, having a lot of inflammation, abnormal hormone levels as well that lead to this oxidation of all that cholesterol in your body, that's more of a concern than just the total cholesterol that you would see. What are a few others that are here? You know, one thing that I would definitely encourage people to look at is consuming more nuts and seeds if they need to get in healthy fats, but definitely look at getting in more seeds typically than nuts. You know, nuts can be a little tougher to digest, but in any case, if you're consuming nuts and seeds, always try to find ones that are sprouted and raw. You know, when we cook these healthy fats, it does denature the fats, so they're not as well processed in your body, not as well digested. And not only are they good to have raw, but when they're sprouted, it helps to release some enzymes that allow them to be a lot more digestible in the body. So I'm a giant fan of this company, obviously, but anywhere you can find something like a sprouted pumpkin seed or a sprouted watermelon seed. Here we've got some sprouted sunflower seeds as well. The big thing is just to mix it up. You know, we don't get enough variety in the diet. I think one of the reasons why people get a lot of gut issues is because we're not changing up the foods enough. I mean, if you really think about it, in ancestral times, we wouldn't have had the luxury of having the exact same food in our fridge every day of the week. So make sure that you're mixing these things up. One thing that I'd also point out too, with most nuts and with most seeds, you are gonna find that they will have far more omega-6s than omega-3s. If you really, really want to throw more omega-3s to look after that balance, which again is vital for your brain, look at getting those things from things like flax seeds, things like chia seeds. Again, you can get chia seed powder, you can get flax seed powder, throwing those onto a salad, throwing them into a smoothie, great way of doing it. You know, one thing I would also point out with sprouted watermelon seeds, most people don't realize just how much protein is in a watermelon seed as opposed to the others as well. Still high in omega-6s, but definitely, you know, look at getting that variety so you can increase your protein boost if you like to do that. And you know, a couple more that I would just point out as well. You know, everyone knows that dark chocolate is more or less a superfood because it does have some benefit at preventing heart disease. But of course, we can't have, you know, dark chocolate where it's 30% chocolate and 70% sugar. Really, we just have pure chocolate on its own. There is no question that chocolate via the cacao bean brings some incredible properties that will benefit your overall health, will help to prevent a lot of diseases. But at the end of the day, it comes from that cacao bean. I mean, it's this magnificent food that really should be considered a superfood. Well, cacao butter is absolutely amazing. And for people that are trying to follow more of a healing diet plan or an advanced nutrition plan or a ketogenic plan, any of these types of plans, specifically even the core nutrition plan in Maximize Living talks about getting more healthy fat into the diet, cacao butter is exceptional. This is the oil that's extracted from the cacao bean. It's not gonna look like chocolate. It's actually gonna look a lot more like this. And again, this is incredible though if you wanna get some additional healthy fats into your smoothies. Again, this can also be melted down to be used on desserts. And frankly, a lot of people just use it on their skin as well. So cacao butter, great way to get that oil from the cacao bean, which is the source of the healthy dark chocolate that everybody has raved about for so long. And you know, just last a couple of the real obvious ones too. You know, don't forget, you know, I think we started this discussion talking about salmon and talking about fish. I'm a big fan of any type of fish that we can add on to a salad, but I would obviously want to make sure that these are coming from bigger oceans. You know, so one of the concerns with fish is when they come from the smaller waters, they're typically more polluted and they're typically fed a lot of, you know, bad stuff. They're fed a lot of soy, they're fed a lot of corn and such when they're farmed. So whenever you look at a fish to add to a salad or any other meal for that matter, we want to be looking for something that's wild, and we want to be looking for something as well that comes from those bigger bodies of water, something like the Pacific Ocean or the Alaskan Sea, as opposed to the Atlantic Ocean as well. So those are just a few ways to get some more healthy fats into your diet for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. If you want some more options, obviously check out Maximize Living nutrition plans and talk with your team right here in your Maximize Living office. Speaking of having a healthy brain, it is absolutely vital that we talk about getting enough sleep. You know, brain fog is the terminology that we apply to that condition where you can't remember certain things, you have difficulty putting certain words together, you're forgetful, you're clumsy, you have difficulty just even processing information at work. You know, a lot of brain fog is caused by not getting enough sleep either the night before or just in general. Now, here's the scary thing about the sleep problem in America. There are $32 billion spent every single year on sleeping pills, and a study in 2007 showed that the average person taking sleeping pills only gets 11 more minutes of sleep per night. Yes, just 11 more minutes per person on $32 billion of sleeping pills. And more, we're seeing people that don't want to take sleeping pills because they don't want the side effects. They don't want all the drowsiness and all the other problems that occur with taking sleep medications. So what are some of the things that you can do? Well, tip number one is turn off those devices. You know, there was one study that referred to the iPad hangover. And you know what? There is an iPad hangover. Why do you get an iPad hangover? Or really just from staring at any electronic device? Many people have heard that melatonin is a natural supplement that can help you fall asleep. Well, the reality is you're depleting your body's own levels of melatonin when you're staring at a bright screen. You know, it's really cool that some of the devices now have this yellow mode that removes a lot of the blue light so you don't get as much of that interfering with your brain waves before bed. You know, but I would still set a timeline so at a certain time of night, you're shutting off that light. Remember, human beings are designed to sleep when it gets dark, and having a bright screen in your bed certainly doesn't help it get dark, whether that light is blue, yellow, red, or anything else for that matter. So shut the devices off. I also think it's critical that you commit to a time. You know, it's also been shown that the hours of sleep that you get before midnight are ridiculously more effective for you the next day than those hours of sleep that you get after midnight. And one final tip, we've been talking about it all month long, but make sure you cut down on those carbs and cut down on the sugar. You know, I always used to think that certain things like caffeine would keep people awake, or even I was worried that chocolate would keep me awake. The reason why chocolate used to keep me awake was because of all the sugar. So one thing that we say is even if we're on something like a core nutrition plan, and we might be having more grains or even healthy versions of pasta, something that might be a little bit more carbohydrate heavy, make sure you're having those carbs earlier in the day. Later in the day, move away from the carbs, more towards your proteins and your fats. Guaranteed you will sleep better. Better for your brain, better for you. You know, when you think about the health of your brain, It's very easy to think about food and fitness and lifestyle. Most people don't typically think about their posture as it relates to the health of their brain and their spinal cord, but there is a massive connection. As a chiropractor, I would always advocate for people receiving regular chiropractic care to make sure their posture is as great as it can be, but there's simple things that you can do on your own and simple things that you must do on your own. Dr. Ruck did a study in 1995 identifying that when people lose the natural curvature in their neck, which is all too common nowadays because of how much people sit and how much people text and how much people use computers, that the same process of demyelination, which is the very, very pathological problem that happens in the brain for people that have multiple sclerosis, that actually happens in the spinal cord, just a few inches below the brain when your posture starts to become distorted. So it's vital that you maintain healthy posture. It will not only affect your spinal cord, but that's also gonna affect the brain's control into the body. So if you're not in the position where you're able to stand up for more of the day, if you do have to use a computer, if you do have to text, if you have to use technology, think about a few things. The first thing is, try to get a standing workstation. And when you set up that standing workstation, think about having your keyboard such that your shoulders can be back so you're not hunched forward. Also, it's one thing to stand, but make sure you're not looking down at a monitor. Try to be looking at a monitor at eye level or even above. When you set up your work environment, I would set things up so that you are forced to move around. Even a few years ago, more offices had a need to go to a photocopier and a need to go to a stapler. Nowadays with computers, you can pretty much do everything on your computer. So what you want to do is set up an environment so that you can move around as much as possible, whether that's for a water station or if you do have a photocopier or other technologies that you have to reach out to, like a printer, don't keep them within arm's distance. Make a point of being able to move around your work environment a lot. And when you do need to sit, think about sitting either on an exercise ball or sitting even on a wobble cushion. When you're sitting on something that is basically filled with air, as opposed to having your back up against a backrest, it's gonna cause you to stay upright. It's gonna cause your lumbar spine to stay activated. It's gonna cause your neck to be a lot more upright as well. You're gonna be a lot more buoyant. It's gonna be better on the discs and the joints of your spine, which ultimately is gonna lead to better posture and give your chiropractor a lot less work to do on you because your posture will be much better off in the first place. Hi, I'm Dr. BJ Hardick. I'm a co-author of Maximize Living Nutrition Plans, and we're talking right now in Maximize Living about how to maintain a healthy, fit, strong brain. You know, there's a number of things that people can be doing through the 5 essentials of Maximize Living to make sure that your brain is healthy and strong. And it has become so much more prevalent now that we need to take care of our brain because we see so much cognitive decline. You know, it's very, very scary that I think 1 in 2 people show some very serious signs of decline over the age of 80 or 85. That can include Alzheimer's disease. We even start to see about 1 in 8 people start to experience things like memory loss and difficulties even over the age of 60. So it's very important that we want to start taking care of the brain at a young age. But at the same time, if you've already started to experience some symptoms of, forgetfulness or heaven forbid, signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, any of these things, there are ways to take care of yourself as best as possible from a very natural perspective. So we want to talk about some of the vitamins and supplements that we know can indeed play a very, very helpful role, ones that you can certainly consult with your Maximize Living doctor that much further. A couple things we would look at is, I've always been a big proponent of getting in the right ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And nowadays people are typically getting about a ratio of 50 to 1 omega-6s to omega-3s. So, I think it's very important that you're getting in enough omega-3s to balance that out. Now, no one knows for sure, but it is believed that in our ancestral times that our ancestors would have consumed more like a ratio of 1 to 1. Or maybe it might have been 3 or 4 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3s. But we do know that the brain thrives better at those lower levels. Unfortunately, now with these ratios excessively high, with a lot of processed vegetable oil in the diets and that type of thing, it's very, very key that you build up the omega-3 intake into the body. But it doesn't mean that omega-6s are bad. I mean, omega-6s obviously are here for a reason. They do play a role in your body. You do need the role of omega-6s, but they got to be the good omega-6s and they have to be non-denatured. So certainly looking at a quality omega. Obviously, Maximize Living carries an optimal omega, which helps you get closer to that ratio. And there may be some people who may just need to boost exclusively with omega-3s if the ratios are too far off, or if you've had a history of depression or ADHD or some type of difficulty where we'd like to see things function and fire better in the brain. So definitely looking at omega intakes, that's huge. Next thing we talk about is CoQ10, vital for energy. And it has indeed been shown that in studies that CoQ10 does prevent I shouldn't say that it prevents neurodegeneration, but it has some guarded impact against neurodegeneration. Obviously, you've got to look at the whole picture when it comes to your health, but taking CoQ10 is vital for energy, something we don't think about a whole heck of a lot. Sometimes you get CoQ10 in a multivitamin supplement. If you don't, certainly it is very vital for energy, and brain function can be taken on its own. The next thing I think is key to look at is B vitamins. Again, often available. You can get enough B vitamins through a quality multivitamin, or if necessary, you may find that you do better by supplementing with additional B vitamins. I can certainly say experientially as a chiropractor, I've worked with a number of clients who've had a history of depression, and when they supplement with more B vitamins, they find that they do a lot better, they sleep better, their symptoms are greatly reduced. There's also a lot of clinical studies looking at the role of B vitamin depletion and how that is connected with things like depression and other associated disorders. So do look at B vitamins, not only as a preventative basis and say something like a multivitamin and or your foods, of course, but perhaps even a boost if you've dealt with some issues. Vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is just vital for everyone. I mean, vitamin D3, pretty much when you look at it, is the vitamin that you should get from the sun. And if you really want to break it down, it's not a vitamin you get from the sun, but it's certainly activated when those UV rays get to your skin. And vitamin D3 really is a pro-hormone that is involved in just about every immune process in your body. And that's why it's so vital. We've also seen some benefit with vitamin D3 with certain individuals who have had difficulty with cognitive decline. When you're taking vitamin D3, we do recognize that in the conventional world, the standards are quite low. We'll often hear about people needing to take 400 units of vitamin D3 on a daily basis or 1,000 units on a daily basis. Most in the natural health world, though, would recognize that in order to get your body's own levels of maintained vitamin D3 to a level where you're doing much better, people typically need to take between 5,000 and 10,000 units a day. Now, it is individual. Certainly, people could go get tested and find out, what are my vitamin D levels that I'm taking in. The test that somebody would get done has to be very, very specific. It's actually called a 25-OH D3 test. But that's how you can find out just exactly how much vitamin D3 you need to take. But at a bare minimum nowadays, natural health experts would say at least be doing 5,000 units a day. And in those winter months, if you're not getting as much sun exposure, people are probably typically going to do better with 10 to 15,000 units a day. But it is certainly individualized. You want to maintain a good level in your body. And that's not always just exclusively related to how much you take in. Some people can actually maintain higher level. One tip we would give you, there are cofactors for all of these. I mean, certainly there's cofactors for vitamin D3. People ask about vitamin K2. Well, you know what? There's vitamin K2, there's manganese, there's boron. There's a number of cofactors that contribute to the proper functioning of vitamin D3 in your body. What I learned from a great mentor years ago is that raw spinach has all of them. So I'd want to be getting in vitamin D3 on a regular basis. If you're getting it in any type of supplement form, try to get it where there's no excipients, no additives. Try to get in those 5,000 to 10,000 units all in one supplement as well, so you don't have to take handfuls of supplements. But also raw spinach every day will benefit the use of vitamin D3 in your body. And also, we always come back to a perspective on detox. I dealt with severe mercury toxicity years ago that was actually discovered by a lab. So my mercury levels were 10 times higher than what was considered acceptable. So I started doing a lot of research into toxicity and certainly in my own case, mercury poisoning. There's studies out there that show that, mercury does cause brain neuron degeneration. That one study was done actually by the Department of Medicine at the University of Calgary. So this is stuff that is not just health food store conversation, but it is known and respected at the university level that toxicity can cause neurodegeneration, including the nerves in your brain. So I'm a big fan of some level of perpetual detox. Obviously, Maximize Living has always placed an emphasis on essential number 5 of minimizing toxicity so you don't have as many pollutants getting in the body. And that's why it's so vital that vitamins and supplements, they don't have a lot of excipients and additives and excess sugar and fillers and colorings that you just don't need. But I'd also say this too. None of us probably led a life where we didn't get any pollution in the body. Even when we try very, very hard, we certainly know that the air is polluted. Certainly water can contain chemicals. One thing that's just very real and scary is I've lately seen how a number of city water supplies, regardless of what your position is on consuming chlorine or fluoride, but a lot of city water supplies now have residues from medications that people have flushed down the toilet, including birth control pills. So absolutely, I want to take an approach, in addition to a multivitamin, which gets the nutrients in, I want to do everything I possibly can to make sure that I'm getting waste out of my system. And really, detox is not a fad. Your body has a liver, you have kidneys, you have a gut. Your body's always trying to detoxify. I mean, clearly the body was designed knowing that it would come in contact with environmental pollutants and that your body would have to get rid of those things. But there are ways that we can benefit the body and increase its detoxification potential by really doing 2 things. Really working to increase your body's levels of glutathione, which is your body's #1 antioxidant. It recycles all the other antioxidants in the body. And then the other part of the 2-step process is making sure that you're clearing any pollutants out of the body. And that's where a benefit of these earthly elements like activated charcoal, or even sometimes we've seen people use things like diatomaceous earth, or we've seen people use things like bentonite clay. All of these things, they're magnetic, essentially, to environmental pollutants and waste, and they can help to pull those out of the body. Obviously, the ML Detox system addresses each of those areas, and there could be other ways that you can look at detoxing as well on a daily basis, too. I mean, I'm a big fan of all the things that would boost your glutathione levels. So exercise and getting in glutathione from raw vegetables as well. When you cook vegetables, you deplenish your levels of glutathione. That's not good, certainly doesn't help with detoxification. So good raw foods in every meal are wise as well. So this isn't gonna solve every person's brain issue, but they are key ways that you can look at preventing degeneration long-term. If you have further questions, check in with your Maximize Living doctor. Hey guys, I'm Dr. BJ Hardick with Maximize Living. We're talking about how to keep a healthy brain. And why would you want to keep a healthy brain? You know, the statistics show that 1 in 8 people by the age of 65 start to go into cognitive decline. And this is really scary. By the age of 80, 1 in 2 people are either dealing with Alzheimer's or some other form of dementia. You know, what's really interesting is that in 2005, the National Review of Medicine put out an article identifying that, in fact, Alzheimer's disease really may now be considered type 3 diabetes. And this was a shock because most people are familiar that there are 2 forms of diabetes. But when the medical field started talking about there being 3 forms of diabetes and Alzheimer's being perhaps the 3rd form of diabetes, it really raised a lot of eyebrows in terms of what we can do to prevent Alzheimer's as best as we possibly can when we're making healthy choices in our youth before we're having to deal with it later on. So fundamentally, although we recognize that there is type 1 diabetes and there is type 2 diabetes, which is certainly recognized, well recognized within the industry as something that we do to ourselves because we consume too much sugar, too many starchy grains, and too many, high carb, high processed foods during our lifetime, we're recognizing that the impact of that on the brain is now equaling something that we recognize as Alzheimer's disease. So what is the best way to make sure that we don't go down that path? The first thing is massively cutting the amount of sugar that you would consume in your diet. I mean, it has been shown for anybody who's followed natural health for the last couple years, we know that more and more people now are moving over to what Maximize Living has always preached, which is about getting a lot of good, healthy fats into the body. So you want to think about, sprouted nuts, sprouted seeds, avocado, coconut, as opposed to those other less efficient forms of energy, basically coming from glucose and simple sugars. Now, I'm a fan of fruit. No one has ever suggested that just eating fruit itself is going to contain the sugar that's going to cause you to develop type 2 diabetes or type 3 diabetes. But at least when you're eating fruit, you're getting all the fiber, the minerals, the water, all the other nutrients that are there. It's the processed sugars that we want to avoid. What we're seeing more and more is the more high healthy fats you get into the diet and the less sugar, the better chance you have at maintaining a healthy brain now and long term.